For our homily this morning, we are looking at the covenant of works. The Westminster Confession of Faith comments on that in the 7th chapter, and we'll look at that for this morning, looking specifically at the second section of that chapter. And I'll read it for you and then make a handful of comments. The first covenant made with man was a covenant of works, wherein life was promised to Adam, and in him to his posterity, upon condition of perfect and personal obedience. So the confession talks to us about a covenant of works. This is a covenant God made with Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden while they were yet without sin. God made an arrangement with Adam and Eve such that they would have the privilege of working within that garden, tending the trees and the fruits and watching over the animals. But there was one tree, of course, that they were not permitted to eat, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So that posed a test for them, a test for their obedience. And should they have obeyed the Lord and been faithful to that, they would have been confirmed in that original righteousness and given a place in God's eternal kingdom, never more able to sin. This is a covenant of works. Some people object to the idea of there being a covenant here at the very beginning, since, after all, there was no covenant per se stated. The word covenant does not occur in the text in Genesis 2, in particular 2 and 3. So we don't have the word covenant presented. We don't have an offering made. But of course, an offering would be not quite appropriate there because that assumes sin and the need for the death of the sinner. What you do have, however, is the command of God, followed with promises of blessing and curse upon the faithful obedience or disobedience to that command. So you have the elements of the covenant relationship formed there in the Garden of Eden. God was in a relationship to Adam and Eve as their king, as their Lord. He is their creator, and they owed him filial obedience to all his commands. God is the one who then enters into this arrangement which he himself initiates, and he sets the terms for that. And that covenant is the covenant that will be broken by Adam and Eve when they ate of the forbidden fruit. With that, you have the consequences of breaking the covenant in terms of the curse that comes on Adam and Eve and all their descendants, even upon you and I. Now, that covenant of works continues with us today in the sense that we are still obligated to obey God, to observe his righteousness, to live lives of perfection before him. The fact of the matter is, however, that none of us are able to keep that covenant. A covenant of works is a covenant that we cannot keep. Many try to think that their good works in some way merit favor with God, merit an entrance into eternal life, but those hopes are futile. As Paul makes very clear in his letter to the Romans, chapter 3, we all have sinned and fall short. That's a continuous present tense. We continually fall short of the glory of God. The righteousness, the perfection of God is that which we miss every day. And so we have here then a fruitless endeavor to try to earn favor with God by living a good life. If we think that God's going to look on us and say, you did well, you took care of your family, you watched you performed for your employer, and you attended worship services and so forth, that's not the basis of your salvation. All of your good works will indeed fail to measure up to God's standard of perfection. And so what we need is for somebody to provide for us under this circumstance, and that would be Jesus Christ, who keeps the covenant for us. and obeys God perfectly, then it's His righteousness that's communicated to us by faith. So we'll finish our meditation on the Westminster Confession here, and let's turn to the Lord in prayer.